Hello everyone. Today we are going to see one of the most common scenario that we use in Lightning Web Components that is called as Lightning Data Table. If you're someone new to LWC or if you're someone new to Salesforce, you might be hearing this term Lightning Data Table for the very first time. I would like to explain, before going ahead, I would like to explain what Lightning Data Table is. A Lightning data table is a kind of a standard Lightning based component provided by Salesforce. And the purpose of the Lightning data table, it is used to kind of display the data in a tabular format. So if you have some contact records, if you have some account records, and if you need to put those data in a tabular format or tabular structure, so in that scenarios, we will be going with the Lightning data table. So it is basically designed to handle large amount of data, which allows users to, if you need to sort the data, if you need to paginate, and if there is some large amount of data, and if you need to search the data, if you need to filter the data, in those kind of scenarios, Lightning data table comes into the play. So whenever we speak of this Lightning data table. So there are two scenarios in which we use this Lightning data table. The first scenario is it's going to be a straightforward way. For example, in Salesforce, we have objects, right? We have account object, we have contact object, we have opportunities, and we have custom objects, and there are going to be many objects. So for example, just consider if you are working in the contact object. So if you need to fetch the contact data in a tabular format, so it's going to be a straightforward process. There's not much complexity involved in that particular scenario, but just consider a scenario like if you need to work in the contact object and you also need to display account records in that particular contact object. So that is where the complexity begins. So that is a scenario that we'll be looking in. But if you're looking for to work on the single object, like if you just need to fetch the contact record and just put the data in a tabular format, it's going to be straightforward, and there are a bunch of resources available online. So this is going to be a different scenario, but uh, this is a complex scenario, but still I will try to put this in a presentable way. So yeah, let's get into the topic. So I'll just open my VS Code. The first things first. So you will be first creating an Apex class. So we're just going to Apex class, and we'll name it as display contacts. So we no need a constructor for now. So we'll be just deleting this constructor. So we just tried creating this particular class. So now what we'll be doing is that we'll be just trying to create a method. So before that, we'll be giving something like aura enabled variable equal to true. Always remember, whenever we are trying to work with the Apex classes, and if that Apex class needs to be invoked by your Lightning Web Components, you must always remember that you should be using this aura enabled annotation. It is kind of used to mark your methods that can be invoked by the Lightning Web Components. It just enables the communication between the client side Lightning components and your server side Apex controller. So you should always make sure that whenever you are trying to expose your Apex class method to your Lightning Web Components, you must use this aura enabled annotation. Okay. So along with that, you should always be using cacheable equal to true. So when you use at aura enable cacheable equal to true, you are indicating that your method is cacheable on the client side. So what does that mean is that the result of this particular method that we'll be creating right now will be cached in the Lightning component framework. So in a real world scenario here, we'll be just having some single component, but in a real world scenario, you'll be having some multiple components in your org. For example, just consider you have some 30 to 35 components in your org. So uh, there might be scenarios where 15 of your components might be calling the same method again and again. So whenever each method from the Lightning Web components is each component is from the Lightning Web component is calling this particular method in the server side, it should not always hit this particular thing. So what we are doing is that when we are using this cacheable equal to true, so what's happening is that the data is getting stored in the client side cache. So what happens is that whenever in the further steps, whenever the other component is trying to make a new server call, the data will be directly fetched from the client cache rather than hitting this server-side apex. So you should always make sure that you should always use this cacheable equal to true whenever you have some static data, and you should always make sure that you should not use cacheable equal to true whenever you are trying to make some DML operations like insert, update, delete. So it's a kind of a whenever if there is a scenario, if you are using some static data and if your data might not get changed too often, then that's the time you need to be using the cacheable equal to true. Okay. So the next thing that you'll be creating a method public static. So this will be returning the list of contacts. So the use case that we'll be working on is that once again, let me show you this. Okay, this is the lightning data table that we'll be building right now. So it consists of from the contact object, we are trying to fetch the name, lead source, and the phone. And this account name, account industry, and account rating comes from the account object. Okay, so this is the thing that we are going to build now. So we'll try to get back into the lightning public static list contact. So our method name is going to be get contact. And now we should be returning our method. So what we are doing is that we are trying to return the list of contacts. Okay, select id, name, lead source, home, and we are trying to fetch what are the things that we are going to fetch from here. We need account name, account industry, and account rating as well. So industry, account dot rating from contact. Okay. So this is nothing but if you are completely new to Salesforce development, so this is nothing but a SOQL query. SOQL is nothing but you might have heard the SQL, right? So what we do in the SQL is that we used to fetch the data. So similarly in Salesforce, we use something called as SOQL to fetch the data from the Salesforce databases. Okay. So here what we are doing is that we are trying to fetch the fields from the contact object, but the thing that you needs to be remembering is that whenever you are trying to fetch your parent records from a child record, whenever if you are trying to fetch the parent records from your child record, so in that scenario you should be using a dot notation. Okay, so ID, name, lead source, and phone belongs to the contact object. Okay. But this name, industry, and rating, you are trying to fetch it from the parent object. Parent object is nothing but the account. So in that scenario, what we needs to be doing is that we need to be using the dot notation, and you will be using account dot name, account dot industry, and account dot rating. Okay. This is how you write your Apex code. And the next thing that we need to be doing is that we tried creating the Apex class. So the next thing is that we need to be creating our Lightning Web component. I'll try creating display contacts. So now we tried creating our LWC. So the first things first, we'll be just getting into the template file. So HTML is the place where we'll be trying to display the data. So we'll be writing our code here. Okay, so maybe we can give div style equal to height equal to 500 pixels, something like that. And then we should be using this lightning data table tag. So inside this, we have something called as, so this we have attributes like key field, data equal to all contacts, columns equal to columns. Okay, so what we have done is that we have just used this lightning data table tag that this is given by the Salesforce. So we just use this lightning data table tag, and we have used some attributes within that lightning data table tag like key field, data, and columns. So now what we'll be doing is that we'll be trying to build a JS part of the code. Okay, so in the JS code, what we'll be doing is that the first things first, we need to import that particular method. Okay, we need to import get contact from Salesforce Apex. And what is the class name? That is called as display contact. Display contacts dot get contact. So what we are trying to do over here is that we are just trying to fetch the get contact, this particular get contact method from our Apex class. Okay. So you should always make sure you are just using the current naming conventions. There might be many scenarios even where we make this silly mistake at majority of the times. Like what we do is that we just put yes or sorry, we just put uh, we just add some yes over here, and the code might not work. So you should always make sure that you are giving the correct name over here. So this is nothing but this is the class, this is the Apex class, and this is the method that we have defined, and we have just given aura enable, right? So when we give the aura enable, so what does that mean is that now we can access that particular method inside our LWC code. Okay, so the next step is going to be, yeah, we can just define our constant columns equal to make the things easier, I just have some static data over here. So I just created the labels over here. So what this step actually is doing is that we need to define that particular lightning data table, right? As I showed before. So we are trying to achieve this particular output. Okay. So this particular output has some columns. These are called as name, lead source, phone, account name, account industry, and account rating. So you need to display this data table in this format, right? So for that, you will be uh, putting your column, and you'll be giving your label and field name value. So now what you'll be doing is that you'll be just creating columns, and you'll be just using columns over here. And there's one more thing called as all contacts. Okay. Now the next step that we need to work on is that we need to fetch this all contacts data, and this all contacts data will be displayed in the data section over here. And the columns are nothing but the headers of the lightning data table. Okay, so these columns will be displayed over here, these columns. Okay, so the next step is going to be, we should be importing the wire method. Okay, so now we are trying to import this wire method. Okay, wire is nothing but it's a kind of a decorator in LWC. Okay, so what does this do is that whenever, if you need to fetch the data from your Apex class, from the Apex method to the Salesforce Lightning Web Component, in that scenarios you will be using this the wire decorator. Okay, so in the Apex method we will be annotated with the aura enabled. So from there, using this wire method, you will be fetching your data. Okay, so now what you'll be doing is that you'll be using this wire, and then this is nothing but this is your method name. Okay, you can have any name as you wish, but for the best practice here, you should always make sure that this is something meaningful. Okay, so get contact. So now what will be happening is that we need to be calling a function. Okay, we need to be defining a function. We can name it as something like wire contacts. It will, from the Apex, it will return when using the wire decorator within an Apex method, the it will return some data and error. Okay, so the next step is going to be, if it is returning data, what we'll be doing is that for letter of data console.log, we are just trying to stringify this, the result that we'll be getting. So JSON dot stringify row. We are also writing the else if, and if it is the error, we are trying to print this particular error. Okay, console.log error. We're just trying to save this, and now we have done with HTML part and JS part. We are not using any external CSS in this component. So the next thing is that we need to expose this. Okay, so whenever you are trying to expose this, is expose should be true, and you need to define your targets. So I just have this handy. So here what we are doing is that whenever you are trying to expose your LWC component to the Salesforce org, so what you'll be doing is that you need to be changing this is exposed to true. And the next step is that in which lightning pages you need to be displaying your exposing your lightning web component. Okay, if you are just trying to expose your lightning component in only lightning app page, you can just ignore this too. And similarly, if you're trying to push your data to the lightning homepage, so you can ignore this app page and record page. Okay, so it depends on you. Okay, so now the next thing that we'll be doing is that display contacts data table. We'll just try to push this org now, push this, deploy this to org. I hope it will not return any errors. Yeah, you could see deploy source to org successfully ran, right? So similarly, we'll be deploying our LWC component as well. This is the component that we have created. So display context.html. deploy source to org. Invalid HTML syntax. So we're getting some errors. Let's look into it. It is saying like missing white space between attributes. So yeah, just made some syntax error. Do you find that pixel? We'll try deploying this now again. Let us see. Deploy source to org. Yeah, now you could see that deploy source to org successfully ran. You should always make sure that you are avoiding these small errors, and you will end up a lot of time. And there might be scenarios, and I do want to say, like, here, whenever you are trying to get the method from the apex class, at sometimes you'll be using get contacts over here instead of the get contact. You should be always aware of this particular thing. And this thing can be anything as you wish, but this thing, it is referencing, right? So you should always put your correct method name. And this is something that majority of them make the mistakes in, and in the HTML file as well. There are times like you just put key fields over here. You should always make sure you are typing the attribute name correctly. So if you type in the key fields over here, and the code will deploy correctly, but you're not sure like where it's throwing an error. So you'll always make sure that you are just using the correct attribute name. So these are all some small mistakes that you should be aware of. Okay, we not made any changes, but still we'll just try to deploy this source to org now. So meanwhile, we can just have our, what I'll be doing is that in the contacts, I'll be just opening any of the contacts. So edit page. This is the output of the component. Okay. So now what we'll be doing is that we'll be just display contacts. We'll be just trying to pull that over here. Let us see what it's getting displayed. Yeah, got it. So now if you just try to save this, I guess it got saved now. So if you go to the Lightning app builder, so the next thing, one thing, we can just try to remove the existing one so that there might not be any confusion. What we are doing here is that this is the existing component, right? This is the final component. So we just tried deleting those. Now I guess we only have two components. I just try deleting this as well. So I'll try to do it from scratch. Display contacts, just trying to put it over here. And save this. We have tried deleting the previous thing, so you should be able to see now. When you go into any record, now you could see this name, lead source, phone, account name, account industry, and account rating, right? So when you hit on the developer tools now, you should see your object. You could see all your account records now. Okay. So the next step that we'll be doing is that we'll be trying to copy this. So we have just tried copying this now. We'll be just going to this JSON beautifier. So what I'll be doing is that I'll be just trying to paste it, and I'll be just clicking on this format. Okay, so now here you could see it did fetch the contacts data, right? So this ID, name, account ID, this is coming from the contact record. Okay, but you could see here this account record. So what's happening is that this is a key value. But when you consider this account name, this key does not have any number as an value, or it does not have any string as an value. So it again has another node as a value of this particular key. So whenever we are trying to print the values in the lightning data table, so what happens if we do it in a normal way is that we'll be seeing only this ID, name, account ID values, but it does not read the values of this particular account object. So because this is another node values, right? So this is not a string or a number. So for this, in this kind of scenarios, we'll be trying to flattening this array, and we'll be trying to combine this, and we'll be trying to put all the data together and send it across. Okay, we'll be just trying to see how we can achieve this. We'll be going back to our Visual Studio Code now. So we'll be just going to our Visual Studio Code now, into our JS file. So the next thing that we'll be doing is that inside this data, we'll just try creating an empty array, like let contacts array. Okay. So we'll just have an empty array for now. So what we are trying to do now is we are trying to get this row of data, right? So inside this, we no need this console.log anymore. So we'll just try removing this. So we'll just create a flattened row. So what we are trying to do now is we have the nested object, right? So we need to flat that particular object, and we need to get that values, and we need to push that into the lightning data table. Okay. So for this constant flatten row, let us get those row keys. Okay. Now what we are trying to do is that we have some bunch of key value pairs, right? So we'll be just trying to get the object dot keys row keys dot. I'll just type this code and I'll try to explain you. Okay. We'll be trying to use an arrow function over here now. Something constant single node value. Row of row key. If single node value equal to this dot, this will be calling this flatten method. We'll be passing in three parameters: single node value, date and row. Row key. Else flatten row. single node value. So what we are trying to do here is we just got this each row of data, right? So we'll be having some bunch of records. So each record is considered as a kind of a row, right? So in that each row, we are just trying to fetch the keys of that particular row. So here what will happen is that when this object dot keys, when it is trying to fetch the values, so if you go to better understand this, if it is trying to fetch the key values of this particular object record. So here it will be fetching ID, here it will be fetching name, and we have lead source and phone as well. But this particular account does not have any lead source and phone, so it's just ignoring. But uh, in our lightning data table, we have lead source and phone as well. So yeah, we might take that example. So it will be very much easier. Command C, Command A, Command V. Format or beautify. So yeah, here you could see we have keys, right? ID, name, lead source, phone, and account ID. And this account is a particular object. When it is trying to fetch all the keys values over here, it will be trying to fetch ID, it will be trying to fetch name, it will be trying to fetch lead source, phone, account ID, and only this account. Okay. It will be not going further and it will not be going further and fetching this name, industry, rating, because this account does not have any primitive value, does not have any a string or a number, right? It is an object inside an object. We can't call the nested objects directly. For that we need to use the flattened arrays. Okay, we need to flatten this, and after that we need to do some stuffs, and then only you will be able to call these methods. Okay, so this thing, only these things will be called: ID, name, lead source, phone, account ID, and account. So if we go to this code now, so here object.keys.row, so it will be fetching all these, and we are trying to use the for each. Okay, for each is nothing but this will be it is used to iterate over each key in this array. Okay, for each is nothing but it is used to iterate the group of arrays. Okay, so it will be iterating it. So what will happen is that inside this single node value, we are trying to fetch all the key values, right? So in that key value, what we'll be having is that we'll be having all those ID, name, phone, lead, but for the account, it will be object, right? So what we are trying to do is that, so we'll be fetching all the values in the single node value, and we are writing a if condition. So if this single node value dot constructor is an object, then we need to flatten it. Okay, then we need to flatten that particular row. Okay, so if it is not an object, it will be directly storing all those values in this single node value, and we'll be trying to push that values into this flattened array. Okay, so now the next step is, so So we are kind of passing in three values to this uh, flatten thing. So what are these three values is nothing but single node value is the nested object that needs to be flattened, right? This is where this object is now stored. Okay. So this flattened row is nothing but the object where the flattened key value pairs will be stored. Okay. This is nothing but this row key will be this is nothing but this row key values we'll be sending on here. Okay, the key values. So the next thing that we'll be doing is that we'll be trying to underscore flatten, and we'll be just trying to create an arrow function now. Something but node value, flatten row, node name, and we can just try using arrow function over here. Node value. Okay, so now we're passing this single node value to this node value, this flattened row here, and this row key value to the node name. Okay. Now the next step is similarly what we have done at the top. We had just created this row keys and we have just tried finding that key values, right? So similarly here also we'll try to find the key values of that particular object. Okay. Let row keys equal to object dot keys of node value. So what's happening over here is that, so at the top, when we have written this, it will be returning only this ID, name, phone, and lead. Okay. But here what we'll be doing is that we are just passing this particular object inside, in the sense that single node value dot constructed equal to object, right? So what is the object here? So this is the only object, right? And these things are the primitive set of data. Okay. So this is the only object. So we will be passing this particular thing inside our flattened method. Okay. So object that row key is equal to object dot keys node value. And similarly, what we'll be doing is that now this row keys will be having all these key values. So similarly, at the top, what we have done is that this row keys will be having all these key values, and we'll be trying to iterate using the for each. Okay. So similarly, here also we'll be trying to iterate using the for each. Row keys dot key. And now what we are doing is that inside this flattened row, now it's we are trying to push the values, right? So flattened row node value keys. Okay. Node value key. So the next step here, what we'll be doing is that here we don't know where this value needs to be stored, right? This key value can be anything. In the account object, what are all the things that you're trying to fetch? Like you're trying to fetch account name, account industry, account rating. You don't know whether you are getting the name, you're getting the industry, we are getting the rating. We don't know the values, right? So what we need to do is that inside this, we'll be just passing in a final key. Okay. So inside for each iteration, we'll be trying to create a const final key. So you need something like, if it is account dot industry. Okay. If this is the key, if here industry value is getting, you need to get account dot industry over here, right? For each iteration. So in that scenario, what we'll be doing is that const final key, or you can use the let here instead of const. Let final key equal to node value. Node value is the place where you'll be getting that this single node values, right? So it will be having that particular account object as a single node value. Here you could see, right? Single node value equal to object. So here, what is the object? This particular thing is the object, right? So obviously this account is going to be the key that we'll be getting inside this node value. So we'll be just giving that node value, and you just give plus account dot, and where we are getting this industry value from. This is something that we are getting in the key value, right? So we'll be just using key over here. So now what's happening here is that in the node value, we'll be getting that particular object that we are sending as the single node value. So here it will be account and dot, and key is nothing but the particular keys in that particular object. So whenever the key is the industry over here, so it will be replaced with account dot industry. Okay. So Now we'll be trying to push all the data. Okay, so else if equal to flatten row key equal to single node value, we are trying to push. We have something created over here, right? We have created this contacts array. We'll be trying to push our data to this contacts array inside this loop. Okay, flatten row key contacts array dot push. What we'll be pushing is that we'll be pushing this flatten row data. Okay, so now this flatten row will be having all the data. So contacts array dot push. Now the next step is that inside this contacts array we'll be having all the data, right? So I guess we have created another object outside. So let's create something like this dot all contacts. This dot all contacts. This is the place where we are sending our data, right? So this dot all contacts equal to, now we'll just pass in this contacts array. So now what's happening here is that we are just passing this contact array to this dot all contacts. So here we have defined this all contacts, right? So we are trying to push those values to our HTML code now. Now let's try saving this code. Our HTML code looks good. Meta file looks good. Now I will try to deploy this source to org. Yeah. Now deploy source to org successfully ran. Now we'll just try to go to your org, developer console, inside your org. I'll try to refresh this. Yeah, got it. Now we should be able to see the data here. We're getting some errors. So we'll just try refreshing this again or deploying the code again. So I'm just trying to deploy this code again. Deploy source to org. Now let's try refreshing this code. LWC component white target driven error during. So we might be seeing the errors like this sometime due to some caching issues as well. So during those times, let us try again deploying both the Apex class and our LWC class again and just seeing if that's working. I don't think there are any errors in our code. I hope so. Deploy source to org. We tried deploying both the things and now let's try inside this contacts. Let's go into some random contact. And yeah, now we are getting these values. So this is how the lightning data table will look like. Okay, so this is what the lightning data table is all about. So you are trying to see the name, lead source, phone, records from your contact object, that and the account name, account industry, rating from your account object. So this is similar to the child to parent communication. Whenever you need to call your account records from the a child object records. So in that scenario, you can only do that by using your account object records will be in the nested loop, right? So you need to flatten that, and after that you need to push that values into your lightning data table. If you're trying to push your data without flattening that particular object, then you'll only be seeing this name, lead source, and phone values. Okay, so this is the use case. So this is something that is majorly used in the Lightning Web Components real-time applications. So this is one of the most important concepts that you needs to be knowing. Okay. So yeah, I'll try to push this code in the GitHub as well, and I'll give you the link. And yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you. Have a great day.